Hey there VCE HHD students, my name's Andy, I'm a VCE Health and Human Development teacher. In this short video we're going to look at answering the 2019 VCE HHD exam, question number 12. Before we dive into question number 12, just a reminder over at the Health Resource Hub YouTube channel, a new video like this one is coming out each day between now and the HHD exam at the end of the year. You can subscribe with the button in the bottom corner of the video there. Please let your HHD friends know to do so too. I'm running in the 2 ACE HHD exam preparation sessions coming up in the September break. They're only a couple of weeks away. If you'd like to book a spot to those, you can at book.acedvce.com. Please make sure you do so soon so your posted notes arrive in time before the sessions. You can see our social media links there if you'd like to follow us and get alerts to the videos coming out each day, and also an email if you've got any questions or suggestions for videos you'd like me to work on. You can see here question 12 from the 2019 exams worth 7 marks, and it started with a piece of stimulus material, a graph on the proportion of the population using basic sanitation services in fragile and non-fragile states. Now you'll see it's important to read all of the stimulus material and information because down here below the graph it mentioned that the World Bank classifies countries as fragile or non-fragile, and a fragile state is a country that experiences conflict, violence and instability. So that obviously helps you to understand the information presented. They've also got a key up here showing you that the black bars were the fragile states and the white bars were the non-fragile states. So we'll come back to that in a moment. A was asking you for 1 mark to describe sanitation. So sanitation's referring to the removal of hazardous waste or human waste from the environment. So if you had that in your description, then you would have achieved a mark. Quite a few students mentioned, hygiene and cleanliness, which is different from sanitation. So just make sure you've got that clear in your glossary. Then you'll see B for 2 marks was asking you to use information from the graph, compare the use of basic sanitation services in fragile and non-fragile states. So if you go back up here and look at the information, you'll see that the fragile states all had a lower use of basic sanitation services compared to non-fragile states. So that was the proportion, or the percentage of the population. So you had to reference that piece of information to achieve a mark in B. And then I would have just given, for example, the world proportional percentage and compared fragile to non-fragile states for that second mark. You'll see here, for the description of sanitation, only 43% of students were able to achieve that mark, and then only 25% of students were able to achieve the mark for part B. It mentions here in the examiner's report that the most common error was discussing the percentage of fragile and non-fragile states using basic sanitation, as opposed to the proportion of people in fragile and non-fragile states using basic sanitation. So just make sure you got that information clear when looking at the stimulus material. C was then asking you to explain how the use of basic sanitation services contributes to differences in both health status and burden of disease for 4 marks. So I'd break that into 2 marks for health status and 2 marks for burden of disease. So remember, when you see health status in a question, it's referring to health status indicators. So they might be things like life expectancy, morbidity, HAIL, etc. And burden of disease is asking you to refer to things like DALY, YLL, and YLD. So you can see they provided an example of a high scoring response in the examiner's report, which went on to say if there is adequate sanitation, so that's how it's addressing this first part of the question that's talking about the use of basic sanitation services. This might mean there's sewage disposal and human waste isn't flowing the streets, which reduces the risk of contracting an infectious disease such as diarrhea from contaminated sewage, contributing to lower morbidity rates. So that's ticking off the health status there. Then they went on to say if there's adequate sanitation facilities, might mean that menstruating girls don't have to walk long and unsafe distances to find an adequate toilet, and reduces the risk of being kidnapped and murdered by violent gangs, lowering the YLL rate and therefore lowering burden of disease. So you can see how that answer sort of did what I mentioned before and broke into 2 parts. 2 marks for health status and 2 marks for burden of disease. That's a common type of question, so make sure you've got that clear in your mind. Hopefully you found